Hey guys, it's Kyle Bennett with hardocp.com, and today what we are looking at is the Phanteks Glacier Series G1080 Ti Waterblock for the Founders Edition GTX 1080 Ti. And what we're going to be doing for you today is showing you how the installation goes on this. We've already done videos on the unboxing of this product, and we've also done videos on the breakdown of the GTX 1080 Ti Founders Edition. So back what's in the box real quick. Back what is in the box real quick, which we've already opened this up. So here is the block in all of its glory. You will notice we have components missing there that we've already taken out, which were some TIM. And so we're going to get the block out today. And one thing I should have mentioned last time was we still have the protective covering on the acrylic block, or the transparent portion of the block itself, so as to not scratch that up during assembly. So as we showed you in the unboxing portion of the video, you've got your frag harder lights here, and here along this block. And you can see where the back of this has been smudged up a bit. So we're going to use 99% isopropyl alcohol and come back and clean this up a bit before assembly. So getting it cleaned up, looking at the back of our block, we see where we have our pad for our GPU contact. We have a pad right here for our RAM modules, pad right here for our RAM modules, pad right here for our RAM modules. The small channel right here is going to be for our digital capacitors. This channel right here is a cutout for the chokes or the coils. And what you'll see here is a pad in place for the MOSFETs. So those are all the surfaces that we're really worried about here. But what we're going to do before we permanently affix this to our water block, we're going to clean up all of our surfaces, and we're going to do a test fit back with the GPU to see what kind of mating surface we get. Okay, to test fit our GPU mating surface, all we're going to do is we're using ProLimitech PK1 thermal compound. It's rated at 10.2 watts thermal conductivity, and what we've found has worked good in the past. The instructions do tell us to put it in a star pattern, but we have found that a dab in the middle, about yay big, works good. We use the ProLimitech on all these, so when we test back across blocks, we can see exactly how they all stack up and not have the TIM as a variable. Now in the instructions, it tells you to actually lay the block down on the card, which we're not going to do it that way. The one thing that makes it kind of tough about this, we have this I/O panel, which obviously doesn't allow it to sit flat. So what we're going to do is I'm taking the case for my calipers, and we're going to lay the block on top of it. So now we've got a distance here to leave for the input panel. And this is simply lay this down and mate it. Way to make this easy, I take a Allen wrench tool, put it through here, which will fit into those threads and allow us to line it up. So let's come down. So, okay, we're good there. Pay attention to our holes coming down. And we did not line up well. Should have used two. Okay. There we are lined up. So we have our 4 mounting holes that actually affix the block to the GPU. I'll do that. Now in the instructions, we are sent 4 mounting screws with the kit. And all we got to do is put these in. So we're not tightening any at all yet. Just going to barely touch. Okay, so we got our 4 pertinent screws inserted and barely touching. So what you want to do now is go around and tighten these just a little bit evenly, maybe a quarter turn, until we feel them start to get really, really snug. And you want to kind of keep your pressure even. You don't want any uneven pressure down on the face of that GPU, otherwise you could chip the corners of the GPU off. That one's bottomed out. That one's bottomed out. That one's bottomed out. And that one's bottomed out. So now we got even pressure across all of our screws here. So we can come back and we can check and see what the GPU mate looks like. And untightening these is important as well. You don't want to get crazy. A little bit at a time, each corner, until you feel the pressure release. All right, so let's see what our GPU mount looks like. Had good vacuum down on there. So there's what our mount looks like. Let me bring you in a little bit tighter. See, that came across really, really good. Let's look at the block itself. So I think we got a really good mating surface in there. All our Tims spread out really, really thin. So I'll clean this back up and we'll go through the process once again of mounting the whole thing. So coming back and checking our instructions, next thing we do in the whole process of this, placing down the thermal pads on the PCB. And you can see here we have one zone for the RAM, we have one zone for the capacitors, we have one zone for the MOSFETs. I actually got 2 of my kits mixed up. The ones that come with the kits, as you can see in the boxing, are color coded as to where they go. I messed one of those sets up, so they sent me additional ones. These are not color coded. So set 1 is for our RAM modules. And you can see these are perforated on the back, which makes them easy to place. Set 2 is labeled for the VRMs. Those aren't actually VRMs, but we'll get to that. And set 3 is for the MOSFETs, which is actually for the MOSFETs. So obviously we have our RAM modules around the outside of our GPU, placed there. Then we have what they refer to as the VRMs, which is this line of ICs you see right here. Now these are actually capacitors. They're not actually VRMs. The entire unit over here, all these components together make up the VRMs. So we have one set here for our capacitors, which we're going to trim up. And then we have another set for our MOSFETs, which are these components right over here. And so this full pad will lay down on top of all those together. This particular kit does not have pads for the chokes. Now, we can argue about that, but the chokes don't really, coils don't really produce that much heat. Although, since it's sitting in between 2 components that do produce a lot of heat, I don't know, I think it's a good idea to put them on there, but this kit doesn't call for that. So let's get all the pads put down real quick. All right, as you can see, some of that can be kind of tricky to get off. It's great to have a good pair of needle nose pliers or scissors. I did trim this one up a little bit. Do not throw the little piece we cut off for the capacitors, because we're going to use that in a bit. So now you don't have to do this at home, but I'm going to do it here anyway to show you how well the kit fits, or if the kit fits. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do another quick test fitting with this and see if we get compression down on all of our pads. So if we get good compression down on all of our pads, we should see all of our pads stick to our block. So we've got really nice clean surfaces on our block. Let's hit them one last time. There's still got alcohol on this towel. Let's do that. Come back. Make sure it's dust free. We're going to come back. Obviously, you want to make sure that you tamp down all your edges on here so they don't fall off. So we're going to do a test fit and we'll put it all back together again. And I'm not going to put the GPU in this time, but I'm going to hit around these edges here. All right, let's see how we did. So we got compression there, compression on all of our RAM, almost all of our RAM. It's one block. I did not tighten it down completely, so I'm suggesting, I don't see where we had any compression on these chokes. And those chokes should come into contact right through here. And I'm not seeing that, but we're gonna go with the kit. Maybe when we get everything tightened back down. I did not use all the screws, and we'll see how it goes. So let's do this. Get our TIM back down. And we should get a little more compression through the side there for these VRMs. We'll just have to see what happens. Okay, so you might have seen I struggled with a few of those. So we inserted our GPU screws first, Got those started, just got them a little bit flush where it still allowed us to move the PCB around on the block. And then I went ahead with the spacer screws, the stock spacer screws that we insert back in. These little bolts right here act as spacers for the back plate, and they're also threaded. So we screw back into those when we put the base plate or the back plate back on. And you might have noticed that I could not get that screw in right there, and you'll see that it does not line up with that hole. So it's just kind of the way it is. And this is the third time or fourth time, actually probably the fifth time, I've installed this block on this GPU, and I've had the same issues every single time. So it's just the tolerances that are on the block itself that aren't exactly the same as the pattern here, because those just aren't happening. So definitely leave yourself a little wiggle room, put them all in loose like you would if you're working out on the garage. And next thing we need to do is, I believe we put our back plate on. So this is the original back plate that came with it, and you will notice when you took it apart there is a little cutout right here, and there was a piece of tin material on this as well. So what I've done is, when we took off the bottom of our strip for our capacitors, I cut us another little block to lay in there, because I figure if NVIDIA thinks it's important that there's a pad there, I think we should probably install that back in there. Alright, so let's get it ready to install our back plate. So we use the included hardware that came with the back plate, and as you know, these things are just minutely tiny. So be careful you don't lose those. Put them in a sandwich bag when you take them off. So we've got our first plate that comes up here. And the one other thing that we need to do before we fully install this back into the heads of our spacers is so you got a spacer screw here, spacer screw here. Oh, sorry. Spacer screw here, spacer screw here. Put that down on there to locate those. Get two of our tiny screws. I got a different screwdriver for this. I think it'll work a little bit better. Maybe not. I'm not going to screw that in all the way yet. Just want to locate it. Don't want to tighten it down. Okay, so it's not tightened down yet. So what we have here still, we have our I/O panel. There are two screws that go in the corner of this I/O panel. It's not loose, it's still fixed, but it's only fixed on by the inputs themselves. So obviously you don't want to be cranking on that. They include two screws with nuts, because the screws actually fixed back into the cooler itself. Let's see if I got the right screws here. And no, I did not. And you know what? When I took those out and they said use those those are 5mm screws, I thought they looked a little short. So what I did was I kept our original black screws, which will look better anyway. So use your original black screws off the cooler. So there you go. All right, so let's get our cooler rest of the way lined up here. So we got those 2 screws left, and we'll want to get those fixed down. You know, I'm not feeling really good about that, touching those. Because on the original mount you had 4 screws here with standoffs that held those up, and we no longer have those screw points. I'm going to make an executive decision and slide a thermal pad under there. I just don't feel really good about the way that hangs there. I'm not worried about it making contact. I just want to put it in there so we get some space. I feel a lot better about that. Got a thermal pad here from our other one. And these do have a little lip on them right here. So you want to put this one on second for sure. So there we go, fully installed on our GeForce 1080 Ti. Give you a nice, let's show you there how nice and pretty that is. And we're gonna get her plumbed up, and we'll run her through some tests here, and we'll definitely be back to you. So getting this back on under the magnifying glass, so you can see, I'm not going to be able to show you this on camera, but I can see the tops of our MOSFETs, or the tops of our capacitors right there. Let's see, you might be able to see the tops of our capacitors, our digital capacitors, and I can see where our material is actually making contact in between there. So I may not be putting down as much pressure as I would like, fully compressed, but it definitely is in there. I can actually move around the corner and see where the movement stops and see the compression on that. So we'll definitely be looking into that. The other thing, still glad we put that thermal pad down in there. I don't like that moving around. And so we'll see if it burns up our card or not when we turn it on, right? This water block is also directional in and out, which our other one was not the other day. I got a flow diverter cut out right there. Looks really good. So this is Kyle Bennett with ArtSCP.